Okay, so these are the characteristics down the bottom, and you can attach as many characteristics as you like. I remember doing a project for a travel agent, and we were connected to Galileo, where we got all the master data from there. And I think I must have had about 15 or 20 of these characteristic elements. And they don't go into the party entity itself. They things that attach to the party entity. So we have the party characteristics, and then the next step is party association. So how does this party, and how do we link this party to other areas? And that can be done via a role association. So we can have the party role, and in that case, there can be all different types of roles and you'll see some examples coming along. We certainly have the core derivatives, which is person and organization. And we did talk in the master data session where we have all sorts of extensions to that, being autonomous agent, or it can also be a household, or it can be a bot, or like similar to an autonomous agent, that are derivatives of a party. And then we have party relationships that actually talk about how two parties are connected. And what is, from a business point of view, how these elements related to each other. And then I also find this idea of grouping of parties. So if we have, for example, a stokvel, and that's a South African concept where people get together to save money. So there's this relationship that they have. It may not be a registered entity, so at that stage they may not have a number to it, but they work together as a team. And then the next area to the party model is, how do the other aspects of the enterprise data model connect to the party? Okay, so how do we link the agreement to a party? And a lot of the times it's really just in some cases it's a foreign key to the party ID, identification, and then whether it's a person, whether it's an organization, it doesn't really matter. Does that make sense? Does that analogy work for you? Does it describe what the party model is all about?
Mm-hmm.
Works for me, Howard. Sorry, no one's piping up, so I have to say something.
Yeah, I think it it works, Howard. But you know, like what you're describing is basically the IBM model, the involved party, and I think where the FIBO makes it does it fundamentally different is to break party up between autonomous agent and the sync enroll, no?
Yeah.
Meaning that you are a person, an autonomous agent, and then you can have roles as a customer, as a vendor, as an auditor, and so on, and that it's critically important to differentiate in separate entities things that are pertaining to the person, identification, name, location, to things that are pertaining to the role. That must not be commingled and must not be duplicated.
Right. So I think if I could just, I mean, my sort of understanding is that the first benefit we get is that these elements of the party, for example, identification, ID numbers, whatever that may be, an SSS number or a South African ID number, those are elements that go into an identification entity and not into the party entity itself.
Yes, they could be like your national ID card in South Africa is an identification, but not of the party, but of the autonomous agent, of you as a person. Okay. And so it's only stored in the person entity, but not in various customer, employer, and so on entities.
No, that I understand. So the customer and employee are related almost at the role that they are in, and
they are the same autonomous agent, the same person, no?
Okay. But a single person can play multiple roles. They could be an advisor, they could be a customer, they could be an employee. and they can have multiple roles in the organization.
Precisely. And
They
what
have
you
a
want to
single-
do is that these roles don't duplicate what you have on the screen, no? Location, communication,
Yes,
identification, but refer to the autonomous
Yes.
agent. That's a fundamental improvement of the FIBO.
And what I was trying to show here, and I think certainly if I look at the Oracle model and I look at some of the other models, and the UDM, which is the one from Len Silverstone, they have a similar scenario where these elements are separated from the party. And then at our next level, we have party roles and grouping. There's a derivative from a party as a person and organization, and we have relationships. So across different parties. I see someone else's hand is up. Johan? Is your hand?
Yes, it wouldn't be without me asking a question. Yes, Howard, actually, because I'm used to more the, like Jurgen also said, the IBM party model, and they're actually really the association, the roles, actually that makes up the whole, joins or gets everything
Agreed.
actually together. Actually, this is like because I because I came in about 10 minutes late, so I didn't see it from the beginning. But yes, this is slightly different. So it seems actually I wasn't aware that there was actually some other subtle versions of the party model out there.
Yeah, there's quite a
so I'm
few
going to go do some reading up.
there's quite a few different versions.
Okay, all right. So that makes it more complicated. But I'm used to the IBM.
So Jan, just for clarity, is it when you say you're not aware of it, or you're not aware of the identification, location, and these separate entities?
No, I'm just not aware that there were other completely different ways that they look at the party model. Actually, I'm more used to, like I say, the IBM one. Actually, the way they unpack it. So okay, it's quite interesting.
Okay, so there's certainly, you'll certainly find, for example, HR will connect with the role entity and where that party is playing the role of employee. Okay, so I'm not saying that all of these elements above here, all the other different subject areas have to connect to the party ID. They can certainly make use of the different roles. So that may be in a CRM or whatever it is, that may be a customer, it may be using the customer role. But I suppose the message that I'm trying to get through is the scenario of how a lot of these attributes that are all over the place are connected to the party via this element. And what we don't have is this situation over here where you've got the typical table designs where you see that the information about the party are starting to creep into the quote, into the endorsement, and into the invoice. This is from an insurance point of view. Okay, so you can see all of that data, the corporation name, the salutation, or the names, the identification, all of that stuff is now going into the actual quote itself. That's the sort of, when you see this happening, then you start to see the fact that they don't have a well-defined party model. And all the data is creeping all over. And what you can see in the scenario is that I've got 3 tables, each with a copy of the insured name and other different elements in it. Now, when these things get changed and things like that, then we have all sorts of challenges keeping everything in place. And the other aspect comes when you talk about data privacy. Then you have problems now to understand exactly where all this data is, and do you have a single version of the truth with respect to that insured person or the producer or whoever it is that may be a data subject. Okay, are there any questions? All right. So when we refer to the core elements of the party model, I like to break them up in terms of the party characteristics. And these are the elements of name, locator, identification, equivalency, other attributes, bank accounts, and these can certainly grow. And then we have this complex scenario that we've been talking about now is the classification of the party, its associations between different parties, and the grouping of parties. So those are the core elements of a party data model. Is there anyone that's not sure, or does that explain the different aspects of a party model? Is there anyone that hasn't seen this before?
What are equivalences?
Okay, so what you can have is, for example, you could have a person standing in for playing a specific role, and if that person is not there, then you can go to an equivalent. So you can almost, if that person is not contactable, you have people in equivalent roles that you may want to contact.
Mm-hmm.
So that, are you comfortable with that? Okay, so why do we use a party model? What are the reasons we have for a party model? Now, one of the things that I found with lots of these different systems, and I actually showed you that database design of the insured going all over the place, and all the different areas, is that the arrangements between the people and the organization is. I've got some feedback. So this is volatile over time. So you may have someone who's an employee now, and then they could then work into a customer, or they could be a contractor, or whatever it is. And these elements and these relationships are constantly changing. So as an example, in the insurance scenario, what we've seen is an insured, in some cases, could be the broker as well. And so those relationships between constantly change. So the other challenges that we face are the extensive number of types and subtypes. And if you bring those out as entities, and from a physical point of view, you can really explode on the model. And we'll show you in some of the different type hierarchies that some of the data models have shown there's loads and loads. I just wanted to show you a Power BI data model that I built for Len Silverstone's enterprise data model. And just in terms of some of the subtyping, these are some of the subtypes and the relationships that you're getting involved with. And if everything is going to be expressed in entities, you face some challenges down the road. Okay, and then extending the entity approach with many common characteristics leads to duplicate attributes all over the model. So we constantly find new information that we need to store about the party, and if there's only one party entity, then we keep on shoving more and more attributes into that entity, which makes it unusable and makes it difficult to maintain. And then especially if we want to retire some or change some or group some, that's a difficult scenario to work with. Okay, then what we do have is this other situation that I found when I spoke about a usage. There's this many to one party characteristics. So we can have 5 telephone numbers or communications, and also bank accounts and things like that. And depending on the application and depending on the customer, they may want to allocate a specific ID number or a telephone number as the preferred number or the billing address or whatever it is. And again, what you saw on that other data model, they're actually duplicating the address details and the billing details. And so there's this explosion of attributes that are starting to come into almost the person entity or the insurer or the quotes and claims, all that information is then drifts into those different entities. Okay, so this was sort of part of that previous discussion. So when an application wants to know about the use of a billing address, it needs to be able to understand across the locations, if you've got 5 locations, which one is the one that I send the bill to. And that can vary depending on the application, especially if you go into a banking environment where we have multiple product systems. If we then consolidate the customer data, we can certainly find the scenario where we have multiple and different billing addresses. Okay, so we then have to record the detail and understanding of who wants this and what is the usage of that location or communication or name. So when I use this system, I may have set this to be my preferred name, or I may have allocated a nickname. So, and then when the correspondence comes along, then I have to choose the right element on that scenario. Does that make sense? Everyone understanding, Paul?
You know what they should update all keyboards to just have a quick unmute button, so you don't have to find the software.
The Zoom does that. If you hold your space bar down, then it allows you to talk, and then you can lift it up. So Zoom's got that nice feature.
Yes, but you have to then have the window in.
Yes.
But anyway,
yes.
No, it makes good sense, I think, and it's well laid out.
Okay, Jurgen, is that you're also on mute? You're on mute.
While he's unmuting, I really like that analysis.
I'm good. Please go on.
Howard, I really liked your Power BI analysis on Silverstone stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, what I found with just walking into an enterprise data model, you sort of need some level of way of navigating and understanding what the different areas are, and the type hierarchies are quite massive in the different elements. So using Power BI to understand all the different typing is quite helpful.
Really helpful, yeah. Yeah, this is awesome. You should sell it back to Silverstone.
I think I gave it to him. No, sorry, Jurgen, were you going to say something?
Yeah, could you go back to the first place, that long list that you had there of, no, in your, what is it, your insurance model, what you just showed?
That one.
No, go on. There was the, more, whoops. Where is it? You showed a model that you made, for Power BI.
Oh, sorry. It's this one over here.
Yeah, one page back.
You
had a long list of entities.
This over here?
This, I mean. And I think, Howard, we are actually on the same page. Like what I see here, party category, party qualification. It's just a different name. What you call party, the FIBO and 50M call autonomous agent.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what I see here, party role, beneficiary, broker, client, the FIBO, and I call it sync enroll or party enroll. It's almost the same name. So we are completely on the same page. We are just using a different terminology. No?
Yes.
And the critical point, and I see you do that in your data model, is that party role and party are different entities. And a thing like a party identification, the legal entity identifier, the national ID card number, must never be on a beneficiary, must never be on a broker, client, custodian entity.
100%.
Yeah, so we are on the same page.
And I like, for example, you can see here now party qualifications in terms of what degree do I have? Have I passed my CDMP? Have I done any certifications? That becomes part of the party, qualification, entity, and it doesn't drift into all of the other attributes. So it
wait. Just with one caveat here. If you see something like a qualification, no, that may pertain to the role. So, for instance, a broker has to pass a test and has to be issued a license. So, with all these qualification, you want to be careful. Does it pertain to the party, to the individual, the person, or to its role? No.
Yeah, and you may have a scenario to an extent where you have two constraints, one being information about the party and the other one being conditions and constraints for a role.
Exactly, precisely, yeah.
Yeah. So I have the guest with their hand up, but I'm not sure what your name is.
Hey Howard, it's Greg. Can you hear me?
Hi, Greg.
Yeah, sorry about that. I might have missed it. We're all working from home, and let's just say my dog chased the mailman, so I got a little bit distracted. So I apologize if I missed it. But on the slide that you're on, as like data people, nothing ever happens by chance. And I was wondering, on the right-hand side, where you've got starting at the automated agent, organization, person, going all the way down to trust store and web visitor. Those colors on the right-hand side of those classes or entity types or all of those things, what do those colors correlate to?
Actually nothing at the moment. So I don't, when I look at this, I can allocate an ID to it and then it would almost be a number, but sorry, my mistake. It's actually the count of the relationship types. But,
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's typically one. So I'm really just looking at a data model and what are the relationships that you have. So there is 19, as you can see. So the party role has 19 sub-roles, subtypes.
Okay, right. Okay, now I thought that was tied to the entities, but I think on the left-hand side, if you've got your party model broken up into different subject areas, the color to the left of party, the color to the left of party category, those could be different subject areas. And I was thinking initially that the colors on the right-hand side, those could be different entities or attributes within.
Oh no, this is really just showing the subtypes. Now I do have that. For example,
I'm just saying, yeah, it could have been good as a visual aid when you actually get down from the textual to the visual representation, so that people can correlate what they've seen in text to, oh, that's that color on the diagram, that kind of thing. That's all it was. Okay, cool, thanks.
All right. Okay, yeah, I mean, I just have this detail where I can click on this and find out what attributes and entities there are for that party.
Perfect.
And then just look at the relationships, look at the attributes, look at the definition and the subject area that it's involved in.
Pretty much mining or drilling into your meta model.
Yeah, so it really is. I pulled this out of Irwin, and I was able to find all of these relationships, and then just it's quite a bit easier to digest. And then I think I also had, there's a lot of those diagrams in Len Silverstone. I don't know if any of you guys have read his model.
Good stuff.
He has these images, party roles, party definition, and I can pick up the data model. So in his book, this really just refers to what he's got in his book.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Howard. It's always interesting to find out, besides the primary message that you're trying to convey, like what's the thinking behind the message and how have you put it together?
Yeah, I must admit, and I suppose I should be doing it for things like FIBO and that, just to get a visual ability to navigate through those hierarchies. They're not easy. All right.
Thanks,
so
Howard, one last thing. How much does it go for on the black market?
Free.
This is really cool.
I'll publish. I mean, I'm happy to send it out. It's it certainly helps me understand. Okay, so then what are the different party data models that I'm aware of that are certainly making its rounds? I was a little bit surprised that the OMG had one, and I'm quite fascinated by their progress. It's been quite interesting. I couldn't actually find a nice model of the IBM core concepts of the involved party. Here's the Oracle party data model, and normally with Oracle, what you're finding is it's very, or it's almost at a physical level, so it was a bit hard to navigate through them all. Then we have the universal data model. This is from Len Silverstone, and here you can see the party role, the party relationships, the party relationship type, and the party role type. So this is all those details that we're referring to in terms of party associations, right? So I've used this term party association, and it describes all of these linkages between things. So a person can play a role of an employee, a contractor, a family member, a contact, a customer, prospects, and organizational roles. So those are the different areas, plus an organizational unit. So we've got recurring entities within that. And this is certainly something, Paul, I think you've had quite a bit of experience with. Okay.
I'm a big fan of Silverstone's. He helped me a lot in the past, let's just put it that way.
All right, so there was just a diagram. These are the different subject areas. These are the different elements that he refers to. And then this was the OMG. And notice, and I'm sure you guys will, I was a bit surprised when I first opened it up to see all of these things linked to the party. And then when I read a little bit further, he basically said 7.0 keeps the subtypes, but applies them to the party role association. So these are certainly not parties. Okay. These we understand to be the party subtypes, the person, organization, but all of these. So version 6 of OMG, they had all these things related. And fortunately, they updated that with the role assignment, and there we can see the different types of roles that OMG have put together for their party model. Okay, and there you see the party identification hanging off the party. Now, we certainly know that over and above this, we've got the names, the locations, all of these things have that access to the party. So if I lift up using that party model, if I lift up and I navigate through all the elements of a party, I can basically understand all that party is doing within the organization. Okay, so if I wander through these different areas, I can say, right, this party is a consumer, he's a school, he's a tax authority, whatever it is, a worker, whatever they are, I can work out and derive from it starting at one point. Whereas when you go back to that data model that I had of the claims and the quotes and the endorsements, that stuff's all over the place. So I would not know, for example, that this party is found somewhere on the claims database, unless I go and do some, there's certainly no foreign key that's going to help me get there. All right. So this is the FIBO party model. Jurgen and I wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind talking us through this one. You're on mute.
I put myself on mute so we all have a clear audio, but then I forget to switch it off. And I tried the space bar, but then I recognized it works on Zoom, but not on MS Teams. No?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So with the FIBO data model, I mean, the main thing is that you have the autonomous agent.
Yeah, no, I've actually got it here. Is that a better one? So I've actually got the autonomous agent.
It's a good way to start. No, so it strictly segregates the information that pertains to a person, organization, and so on to the roles it plays. No? And here on the top, that is the autonomous agent, and it breaks down then into the person, into an automated system, and on a different chart is also the organization. No? And then it breaks down further. And if you look at the hierarchy diagrams, so these hierarchies are quite deep for organizations because they include all the legal entities, no?
Right.
And then related to that, and again, only one record independent of the various roles, you would have things like the same that you showed, no? That it would have a location relating to a country and so on, no?
Yes.
And do I see this here right? The oh yeah, and then also important here, the party identification. This is via an associative entity identifies, no? So the person in South Africa has an identity document. You also have other ones. That's why it's a many many. You have a passport and so on.
Yes.
And a legal entity would have an LEI, would have a national tax ID, and so on. So this is all the autonomous agent. And one thing while we I don't like to call the autonomous agent party, no? I think it's a bit too, I think it's clearer to call it agent. And one more note, the common subtype autonomous agent, you have that because some roles could be either a person or an organization or even an automated system, no?
Right.
So, no, let's say the insurance agent, Howard, no?
Yes.
That could be a firm, it could be a person. So the common supertype lets you relate to any of these so that you don't create multiple relationships to person, organization, and so on, no? And then when you go on to the roles, like that was the slide you showed before. Well, and thank you for pulling down these diagrams from the website. So there you have the party Enroll, which is a subtype of the sync Enroll, and then you see how that breaks down to various roles. And we had that exchange, Howard. You said, well, there should be more roles for insurance industry, no?
Yes. Yes.
And you're absolutely correct. The reason is unfortunately that so far the main FIBO drivers have been investment managers and banks, no?
Okay.
And with insurers, it's a bit, I had these discussions with German and Swiss reinsurers. It's like the chicken and the egg, no? They say FIBO is not insurance specific. On the other hand, they don't engage to create industry specific content, no?
Right.
So, but what you would do if you want to do your next model using the industry standard, then you would look carefully at this chart and look, where can I put in my appraiser, no, my insurance agent, the insured, and you may then see, okay, no, this is here under the organization and so on, and then you also weave in other aspects of it, no? And now the main connecting entity is then that you connect with this here, this associative entity has party Enroll. That connects then your insurance agent or here the trustee, the partner in a business with another thing, no?
Yes.
And that's basically the FIBO concept, no? Autonomous agent, a sync Enroll, and then the association has party Enroll, which relates to a role in mainly in a contract, in an arrangement.
Okay.
And
So
maybe one very last word on it, why I also encourage people to use the FIBO terminology. And that is because, well, today maybe you're only doing a data model, but tomorrow users will want to do AI or machine learning, you know, all that semantic new stuff. And then if you use the same names for entities, then it's easy not to create the ontology equivalent out of it.
Right. Agreed. Okay, so one of the questions I wanted to ask, and I know Paul had quite a few of these challenges, that we certainly see, and assuming that this would be at a a conceptual level, when one goes down to physical with all these different types, typically from a database point of view, and I understand an ontology would be quite different, and a database point of view, would you collapse all of those roles into a party role and have a party role type? How would you reify that, or when you go down to a physical data model, would you collapse, and by rolling it up, do you take the roles and put it into a party role?
I think that's an excellent question, Howard. And again, yes, the FIBO data model is a conceptual model.
Yes.
And absolutely, you heavily denormalize as per your specific requirement.
Right.
And now, to be concrete about your question, like here, my party enroll subtype, it's what we always did. If these entities have specific attributes on it,
right?
No, if the trustee has attributes that whatever the customer representative doesn't have, then they of course should remain separate entities. If they do not, if they are just an empty entity, then you collapse them.
Yeah, and yeah, so and then there's also.
If I may add one more thing, like this always ticks people off here. This is typical in semantic models, has party enroll, no? So that is an association, and it can relate many different things. And actually in the ontology, constraints would determine that, let's say, a counterparty can only have a party enroll on a trade, no, something like that. Now, you would not create an entity with 24 foreign keys that are nullable, no?
Right.
No, so this is purely conceptual, and then as you denormalize, as you collapse your contracts and your roles, then you see what remains with has party enroll, and you may role name it, not to capture that semantic.
Right. Right.
Or you keep a has party enroll, and then we can go again with what you said earlier, Howard. You type it.
Yes. Yes.
These are the two ways, and you, the data modeler, decides when you create the logical and physical. Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. Paul, there was something that I think you guys mentioned that at one stage you didn't really collapse it and consolidate those areas, and you had lots of entities running around, and it was difficult to manage.
Yes, in our case, what we did wrong is we actually kept the physical implementation too abstract. So it is really flexible, and we could deal with a lot of different entity types and all that thing there. But actually, just dealing with the data became quite cumbersome.
Yeah.
And I think even Silverstein in his books, he puts the models down, and then he has 3 different approaches of how you implement that stuff, from really keeping it on the one hand quite abstract, and then going to more concrete. And so later on we went a little bit more into creating actual concrete tables for certain entities, even.
Yeah.
Just to make it easier to deal with. It's all about, do you really need all that flexibility, because it's going to come at a cost from a developer point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, Paul. No, and one thing I do is when I implement the FIBO is I take a scope, no, like out of the more than 2,000 entities, the 300 that I really need for the data requirements, and then I attribute. No, I take the individual data items, throw it at the picture, and I create attributes on the table. And then my simple, strict rule is any table that didn't get an attribute gets deleted.
Yeah.
Period.
Good.
And also any associative entity that is not required to be many-to-many gets collapsed into the relationships.
Okay.
So you do this very strict, no? And that is fully appropriate, because the logical data model is not conceptual. You only keep what you need for your project.
Right. And I know that in working with Len, he basically said the same thing. So here's the enterprise data model. When you need to create something, you basically copy his subject areas, and then you go through the process of removing those that you don't need and watering it down to exactly what you require, but it keeps the same shape as the original enterprise data model.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in an earlier project, we used the IBM IAA party model for an integration project. Well, it was actually an MDM project too, but it was used across the landscape. So it was used from, on the integration bus. That was the XML structure and so on, the schema. That's how it looked like. We took it directly from the party model, party v5. But there also, I wouldn't do it again, because this was 10, 15 years ago. I think also people sort of get more refined in how they implement these things, right? But back then, the focus was on flexibility. So all the fields were kept in your XML structure. The possibility to populate, to give it a payload, was there. But I wonder if we had to add the development time to the project based on what that actually cost us, it's going to be a big number. It was not a good idea to do. So you have to do. I know the guys from Big Insurance Africa in Cape Town, one of the architects there, they also used IBM's model, but they actually spent quite a bit of time in their integration layer to chip away what they don't need. And it was quite a lengthy process, but I think they ended up with 25 or 30% at the most of that model, which they eventually implemented, which is quite interesting.
No. Okay, so just before we move on past the FIBO definition, is there anyone that has a question for Jurgen on the FIBO side of it? And let's keep it to party, person, party, and role. All right. No other questions? Great. Thanks, Jurgen. Thanks for that introduction. Okay, and then I just wanted to, I know this is something that Paul spent quite a bit of time on, basically saying that, if your master data doesn't have a good use case or a business case, then you're probably going to battle to ensure that succeeds. What I find with the party data model is that a lot of the times when I've tried to introduce it, certainly the developers were not keen on it, and you had to. But I do believe it's more of the fact that you've gone very abstract, and they want to actually see the customer and they want to see these attributes. And I had quite a bit of resistance, but one learns to be able to explain the benefits and to be and share that with them. So the use cases that I've recently seen, and that's Informatica did a great job in terms of the data privacy management, using master data to keep all of the data subject information together across the different parties. So that's quite a nice one, and I really enjoy some of the discussions we had where the master data and data security is putting in some extra obligations. And when I mean extra obligations is, how do we de-ID a person? So how do we get to a point where we can no longer identify that person? And so that's quite challenging in terms of that. And then if they come back in again, then how do we re-ID that person, which you shouldn't be allowed to do? But if you have a rule to say that you should not be sending any marketing material to this party, you're going to have to keep it in the party model in terms of communication, and you're going to have to be able to manage that flow. And I do like the one derivative that FIBO has in terms of people and agent, and that's a minor. So they've actually they've recreated the minor, and I promise you that's something that we need to pay attention to. So almost all of the data is sitting in that minor data set. If people are doing self-service analytics or things like that, you better be careful when they're merging and linking those minor elements in there. I think we saw the other day with TikTok getting into trouble with using the minor data. I don't know, did anyone see that release on Friday where the 12-year-old is suing TikTok for keeping their data? So data privacy is certainly a big case, and master data has got lots of ability to help us, and certainly the party model can help us understand exactly what that person's doing. And if you just think of one of my biggest nightmares was when we go in and talk data privacy, because we've got these people and parties all over in different databases, and the data subject says, please, can you tell me what you know about me? That's going to be a nightmare if you don't have some form of consolidation, some form of party model that will bring all of these things together and have an understanding of what you know about that person, party, organization. The other involvement that I've had is with Oracle, the Oracle Customer Hub. I worked on a procure to pay, and I must admit I really liked the Oracle Customer Hub. And the thing I liked about it was that you could spend time getting the customer data into the Oracle Customer Data Hub, and that could bring in from all the different Oracle subsystems, EBS. And then the biggest benefit was that they could then change the drop downs in all of these applications. So for example, in EBS, the drop down, instead of it having a list of customers, it would issue a query to the master data hub to get all the customers from there. So it almost moved that configuration data or the person data out of EBS and into the Oracle Customer Hub, which I thought was a really powerful way of getting master data models to work, is that process of then stop the authoring in the applications and make sure that the authoring is happening within the master data model. Has anybody used the Oracle Customer Hub, or they call it, there's actually 4 of them, they've got products and things like that. I was really excited when they did the demo and stuff like that, and then the accountants did some number crunching, and I think it was some horrible number like $1 or $2 per row in the customer hub, and that was per year. And it worked out. I think it was somewhere around $100,000 per year that it would be costing them. But it really has some great functionality, and it really is integrated into all of their suites. And there's some helpful exercise in that.
Yeah, we are actually starting a project now where we've implemented MDM software, but the company is also making use of Oracle's Customer Hub. I don't know which module yet, but we'll be integrating with that.
So here we see the real power of that party model being able to then support and integrate data from the different subsystems, and then to support the customer requirements on all the applications. And just my experience with the different applications and procure to pay and the vendors getting dirty, that was a great help to be able to consolidate everything. All right. Are there any questions? That brings an end to the talk. Anyone want to share? Any questions?
No, but thank you. It was a really good discussion, and maybe an idea, Howard and Paul. Maybe we do something like this about arrangement or contract in the future.
Yes, that would be nice. So if we can do an analysis of the arrangement, and I do like looking at the other enterprise data models and then having a comparison. So it may be nice to work together as a team, and somebody look at Oracle and someone look at IBM and yourself with the FIBDM, and we can compare them. Great. Thanks, Jurgen. Thank you so much for attending. Really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. It was my pleasure.
Okay.
Hello.
There's one question. Yes.
Oh, yes, there's a question for me. Thank you so much. This was really informative, especially on the also data privacy.
Yes.
So my question is, if the party model, when it comes to data warehousing, it's only at conceptual level, or it can be applied at physical level as well, because somehow you'll feel like it's a duplication of, of information. So I just wanted clarity on that.
Yes, certainly. I mean, you want to be able to take these data models like what FIBDM has, IBM, and then to be able to bring it into a physical instantiation. So unless you have something, for example, SAP would have a predefined master data element and Oracle, then you wouldn't need to do that. But for example, if you work with a SAP master data objects where it's just got, it can support any domain, then you'd have to build a model and you'd have to take it from something like this and actually make a physical view of it. And then we'll get into that debate that we were having with Jurgen in terms of, you can see loads and loads of different entities. How would you collapse all the different subtypes into a reduced number of entities so you don't have an extremely complicated physical model, but at the same time trying to keep the growth so that it grows and doesn't break, and you can continue to extend it. Does that answer your question?
No, that's quite clear. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much for joining. We'll publish it, and if anyone wants the Power BI, I'm more than happy to share it. I'll put it on Google. Jurgen, I know you've done Power BI on your FIBO. Hey, that's how you extract a lot of your stuff.
Yeah, that's correct. No, so for the reference implementation is MS Excel with Power BI that transforms ontologies into data models and vice versa.
Have you got nice visualizations of the different types and super types and hierarchies and relationships?
No, not really, no, because it's really to take in ontology triplets, right, and transform them into data feeds that you can load into Power Designer.
Okay.
No, so no, it's purely the transformation process from ER to OWL and back.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Howard. It was quite informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Howard. Paul, speak again soon, no? Bye-bye.
Yes, cheers. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks,
Cheers,
thanks everyone.
Cheers.
Yes. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Goodbye.
I'd love to see that Power BI treatment, Howard. We had a meeting. We have a meeting at 10 o'clock to talk about the party model at my 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
That's brilliant. I'll owe you more beers.
Not a problem.
How would you be able to share that one, the Power BI?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, it is actually quite informative for me. I'm quite junior. The things are, but I see a lot of information out of today's session.
Sorry, won't you say it again, Bishu?
Actually, I'm telling that you're talking a lot of things. I'm quite junior in this data journey.
Okay.
I'm learning a lot of things.
That's great. Yeah, look,
I'm under practice.
Fantastic. Well, there's lots to learn, and that's the nice thing about it.
Sure, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it would be great if you can share the recordings also.
Yeah, we will publish it on LinkedIn. So I have an editor that edits the videos and announces it on LinkedIn. And then you can just ask there and they'll distribute to you. They'll send you the link.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
We are connected on LinkedIn, eh?
Yes, I'm connected.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Great. Jan?
Oh no, actually, I was just actually, I guess I got a phone call. Sorry, but that's why I didn't actually get off. But actually, thanks very much. Actually, I just missed the first little part. But yeah, actually, like I say, I'm mostly working with the IBM party model. But it's nice to know that there's actually a lot of different ones, and I guess I would actually like to. Because it seemed to, well, actually, I know from your experience, I don't know, it seems to me the FIBO seems to be taking off a lot.
Yeah, the FIBO is great, and I don't know whether you actually heard the webinar that Jurgen gave.
Yes. Actually, that one I did. Yeah.
And what we are finding is it is really good, certainly in the financial markets, in the hedge fund and the financial industry, the banking.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit slow in some of the other areas, but I think it's taking a long time to get the momentum and continue at the pace that it needs to go at. But the beauty that you have is that you've not only got data models that Jurgen builds, but you've also got the ontology and taxonomies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
which is a big benefit, right?
Yeah. No, well, actually, where I am actually with RMB, I'm not actually totally involved with that because that's the master data part, but they use the IBM models, but they've bastardized it as well.
Yeah.
So like, nobody really knows how to, especially when it comes to the physicalization.
Yeah.
Then actually, that I think that's where the big problem with the IBM model starts. Is to make it physical is not as easy. Actually, I found than to look something something like the FIBO looks for me. If I can see it, it looks like it will port very easily to a physical model as well.
Yeah, there's certainly techniques in terms of and decisions that need to be made in terms of do you roll up or down or so. I don't know if you've let me just share. Yeah, certainly what you can be doing, and he was talking about the attributes, is these subtypes, depending on how many attributes they've got, and depending on your denormalization approach, you can roll all of these guys up.
Yes, that's what he said, yes.
Or you can push down. And what I have done in one scenario was I had a very dynamic superclass that allowed me to add attributes and then really just use almost a meta definition of what elements had come in using the trustee, and then also using, depending on the different attributes, because they could be quite different. Then you'd almost have a more dynamic attribute design at your rolled up level that could say, I've got an attribute of this type or whatever it is. I don't know if you've seen the product bill of materials sometimes where they just define a attribute as a type, and then it reduces almost the number of relationships that you have and the way in which you put it together.
Okay.
So, but it's always a problem, this rolling up and down, and then if you keep all of the subtypes, then you're certainly going to run into trouble on your physical model. I mean, if you just look at all these different elements over here. So I think you need to be careful wherever you go. And I think where the biggest problem that you get with the IBM one is that it has these different models for the data warehouse, for the data marts, for the cubes, for the reports, for the enterprise data warehouse.
Yes.
So and then they basically suggest that the tools are designed to then read the meta model and do the integration for you if you stick to the model. But as soon as you start to do your own form of denormalization, those tools don't work anymore.
Yeah. You see, because the thing is also, one of the things we have to realize is that, especially in this modern day and age, designing and all these things, well, obviously logically, it can